Hi, and thank you for joining me. My name is Rob Scott, publisher at UC Today, and I'm really excited to present this year's UC Trends series. If you're a fan of UC Today, then you'll know that every October we run a special video series called UC Trends. In this insightful video series, I talk to senior executives from trailblazing vendors in UC, collaboration and CX, and discuss their perspective of the marketplace and what they predict will be the next year's game changers. We will also have some fun with them at the end of the main interview session with some quick-fire questions to reveal a bit more about their personality and what makes them tick. Stand by for UC Trends 2021. Data analytics is an essential ingredient in any business nowadays, and when used correctly, it can be truly transformational, powering innovation and differentiation. Using analytics tools in customer experience environments can help take your live and digital interactions to the next level, retaining your customers for longer and helping your business to adapt to demand as it continues to grow. Known as the godfather of call reporting and analytics, Akixi's CEO and founder, Bart Delgado, has been working with telecoms data for some 20 years or more. Nowadays, his award-winning company, Akixi, provide cloud-based call reporting and analytics solutions to customers worldwide. I'm delighted to welcome to the virtual studio Akixi's Managing Director, Bart Delgado. Bart, thank you for joining me for UC Trends 2021. Really keen to hear more about your year at Akixi and what you've got, coming up in the future. Plus, we're going to have some quick fire questions at the end for a bit of fun too. However, to get started, Bart, I think I've known you quite a long time. I think I was counting up the years the other day, and it was like 20 odd years since I was, in a training course, kind of learning how to kind of install my first call logger. But I think for the audience, it would be great to hear your background and how you got into call analytics. And tell us a little bit more about you to start with, please.
Right, well, Rob, thanks very, very much for the opportunity. Always a pleasure to catch up with you, fella. And I do remember those days some time back. But interesting times we live in now. Akixi is the second business. In fact, what you referred to there was the former business, which was the Swan Solutions business, the CallView product that we took to trade sale. And Akixi is the second business I founded. Previously, you had Swan. And after exiting Swan, I told my business partner, Martin Waters, that the world is going to be going cloud, fella. So the world's going cloud. And I told him, I think we can do it again. I think what we did with CallView at Swan, we can do even bigger and better, but this way out of the cloud. Now, he didn't believe me at first, but proof is in the pudding. This is where we are.
So you went cloud with Akixi. Talk us through the market that you're in, because you're a channel business, indirect business, but you've grown and flourished across these years now, but the market dynamics are very different to what they used to be. So, tell us more about the marketplace that you're in.
Well, we've always, in fact, even in the former business, been a channel-only organisation. It's very, very difficult, I believe, not impossible, but very, very difficult for a business to provide products or services directly, as well as try and achieve a similar delivery model through channel. There's conflict there, and we've managed to, from the outset, from day one, we were always going to be a channel business and delivering this product from the cloud. So, we did this, we built the business organically, and I have to say, it was hard work at first, Rob, because very much cloud was, it's a bit new, for security. And bear in mind, internet was nowhere near where internet is today from the point of view of reliability, availability, and so forth. So we were pushing a message uphill in those early days. And we were actually even trying to deliver a cloud service onto a CapEx platform, which is a bit of an anathema, really. It wasn't until, as has clearly happened now, where the cloud delivery of the voice services became by far and away the majority player in the marketplace, that literally we were there ready and able to sort of hang on to the shirt tails of that industry as it was rocking along. And yeah, that's how we did what we did. We were there from the early days, but marginalised, I would say then. But now that's disappeared.
You're in a good place now. I mean, so what's the secret to success? I mean, is it just getting in early, or what's the kind of secret sauce for Akixi?
Right, I would say for us it's been, and this isn't the only way, but it's the way that we did it. We kept to the fundamental drivers that make this market effective. We avoided capex, and we built the business. It was born to be an opex business to deliver a service, potentially on a global basis. And a huge proportion of our business is stateside, as well as UK, Europe, and so forth. So, we were born, we prepared the business, and that's not necessarily just the technical aspects of the business. We funded the business in such a way that it didn't need huge amounts of capital inflows every month to keep the business ticking along. We built it so that it literally had to fund itself from the early outset. I mean, again, there was Martin and myself, we sort of, had to contribute significantly in the early days, but we stuck to those roots. This was going to be an OPEX business from the outset, delivered as a utility service, and we kept to that. And it was hard work at first. There were several opportunities where we maybe could have received larger cash injections, which would have made it a bit easier, but it wouldn't have kept it to the true principles that we believed long term, and now that's been justified. We're going to make this a successful business.
Sure, and you went through that a number of years ago, right? But actually a lot of the channel are only just going through that in very recent years. So how, when you look at the channel and the traditional comms kind of resellers out there, they're having to go through that transformation from PBX, CapEx into OpEx, UCaaS sales. What advice would you give?
Do you know what? It's a really, really tricky thing. The technology itself was not the issue with the channel. The issue was the commercial model. If you've got salespeople that are reliant upon their holiday in the Bahamas on commission that they're going to be earning this and next month, and the dealer principal that whose wife is expecting her latest Evoque to arrive on the house, in the next week or so, that type of capex inflow is very difficult to move across, because the alternative is you're going to have to say to someone, I'll tell you what, rather than you earning £5,000 commission this month and so forth, what we're going to do, we're going to change the way that you go to market, change the way that you're actually selling services and products, and actually it's going to be services, and you're going to earn, instead of £5,000 commission on a particular sale, you'll earn maybe a 20th of that on a typical similar sale. Now, why would you do that? Now, but the difference is you're going to get that 20th probably for the next 36, 48 months. So actually long term, you're going to end up better off. But who in the meantime foregoes that risk? Who in the meantime says, well, hang on, okay, fine, but I don't want to stop going on holiday for the next 2 years while that's building up. Now, to be fair, that's what we did in the business with Akixi. But for a lot of companies, that transition was actually infinitely more difficult than the technical transition. Yeah, there was some technicalities, but it's the commercial transition which is the difficult thing. Now, companies that have bitten the bullet and made it, done it successfully, probably had to do it with something like a brand new sales team, maybe even a completely different side business that was cannibalistic to the actual original business. Because if you send a chap into a sale, and he can either make a £5,000 capex sale, or he can make a sale where he's going to achieve more, but over the next 3, 4, 5 years, he's going to be too tempted to try and get the short-term win, which, okay, you get it now, but you're not building yourself. I mean, wow, you think of a company that is in today's, I mean, who's selling PABXs today? You know, who knows? Or more the question, who's actually buying a PABX today?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so it's a short game versus a long game, but you can't expect people
Yeah,
to wear two hats, can you, either?
no.
So I think
And that's the problem. It says, how do you fund that? And not everyone could fund that. Or you had to have a faith in the long term. And so what I've seen very few companies that have actually made a straightforward transition. Today we're doing this, tomorrow we're going to do that. They'll have a separate team that's maybe nibbling away at this, at the OPEX type opportunity, and that team eventually grows and becomes bigger than the previous CAPEX team. But say the technical aspects of it are not the issue. It's the commercial aspects that's been the challenge for the channel.
yeah, and I think that challenge does continue, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about Akixi again. You've had a great year. You won Call Analytics Platform of the Year at UC Awards 2020, so congratulations.
Indeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's talk about some of those highlights for Akixi, because 2019 into 2020, it's been a good year for you, hasn't it? So tell us more about kind of that journey so far.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, timing-wise, that's how we've also launched our omni-channel offering into the marketplace during that year, and that's, we're probably a little bit early into the mainstream uptake on that, but it puts us in a very good position. So, providing our services beyond the telephone call was something, well enough, we did in the old CallView days, but now the industry sort of come full circle, and so we're seeing that, that's the big major technical thing that we delivered. We put a lot of emphasis on an improved look and feel. And again, that's the cosmetic thing, but it does make a difference. If it's easier for your consumers to use a product, then they're going to use it more, and more people are going to use it. So the omni-channel, the look and feel. Commercially, though, we've hit a very significant milestone. We literally, the COVID thing has really shown organisations the need to work remotely. Now, we were in a really good position when this happened. The business, we were very easily able to sort of send staff home and work remotely effectively most of the time, not perfectly. We've learned a few things as to, there is a balance to be had, but our channel also noticed, their customers were saying, right, we need to take people working from home. How can we give them the tools that they need to be able to do that effectively? How can we ensure that they've got the resources to do that, and that the ship is being steered accordingly? So hence Akixi was a great opportunity for resellers to provide analytics services to companies that previously hadn't have thought about it, maybe, but it's helped them be more effective in these difficult times.
Absolutely, because you provide a business dashboard, don't you, of real-time and historical analytics, call reporting essentially. But the distributed workforces that we've got now that are in homes and remote locations, deliver that from the cloud. That's the perfect tool, isn't it, for this kind of environment, when you don't have to be a contact center to take that kind of product on.
The contact centers have known about this secret source, as you referred to the term before, using this sort of information to be able to work effectively. But the tools, what we've been able to do with Akixi is deliver that sort of functionality in a mainstream, very deliverable way, so that any business can enjoy it. They won't necessarily have all the metrics that a formal call center will have, but it's certainly a subset of them. An estate agent that doesn't get a telephone, that misses a telephone call for a house, that can be an infant. Well, it's going to be a very significant value. A pizza shop. We're using a lot of fast food sort of outlets. You wouldn't call them call centers, but literally, if you're, the sort of costs of delivering a Akixi to an organisation like that are peanuts in comparison to, you recover 2 or 3 pizzas a month, that's paid for your Akixi, for that outlet. And so those sort of organisations wouldn't have even thought about this sort of technology previously, but the need and the push as how, people have asked the questions. Well, how do I know if, my staff are managing to answer the calls they need? When they're in the office, I can hear the phone ring, or I can see that happening and so forth, right? But when we're all working from home, how do I know? Well, let me tell you, there's some really cool software that you can use to be able to help you do that. Is that right? And that's where the opportunity that resellers found.
So it really has become almost kind of table stakes as part of a, corporate telephony solution, whether you're a small business, pizza shop, or a large corporate. You've got to have call analytics.
The question is asked. Previously, people didn't know that there was stuff to be able to do this. But now they're asking the question, well, hang on a minute, if we're working like this, how do I know? This is how you know. Let me show you.
So with this shift towards omnichannel and the way we communicate with organizations as customers, changing, evolving, more channels coming in, what do you see coming up for Akixi? I mean, what's that roadmap look like? Are you going to have to continue developing the product to accommodate these new channels?
Yeah, I mean, one of the wonderful things about delivering a subscription-based product is you always have to ensure that your product is appealing to your consumer, because they can give you 1 month's notice and say, well, actually, it's not doing what we need it anymore. Goodbye. So the onus falls on the vendor to keep constantly delivering product that's always showing value to the customer. In the old days, you could sell a piece of software, a piece of kit, it doesn't necessarily have to be telephony, and they'd be signed up for the 5 years. If, 6 or 18 months down the line, it wasn't quite doing the job that they didn't want it to, bit tough, really. You had very little leverage as a buyer on making a change. Or, good example, in the CapEx days, if you bought a PABX that gave you the ability to have 30 extensions on it, because you thought today, we've only got 20 people, 30 extensions should give us potential enough growth. And then you find in 2 years' time, you need something that's got 50 because of the other acquisition or so forth. A lot of the time, it's a forklift. It was chuck the old one out the door, put a new one in. Now, that's not the way that things go. It shouldn't be that way. And that's a throwback to the Industrial Revolution, when people were buying machines to plough the fields or pump out of mines and so forth. You had to commission a team of engineers for 6 months to produce an engine that you'd need to take the water out of the mill or whatever, and that's the way it was done. And that's how CapEx became a thing. But not today, fortunately. The world is in a position now whereby you can have as much or as little of what you need. We'll talk about that more a little bit later on. But yes, that's a big change in the workplace. I wouldn't want to be in commercial real estate at the moment, to be honest with you. That's an industry that's going to go through some huge change. We were in a good position to be able to send people to home, and I think a lot of organisations have had to look at that and say, right, okay, we've got to do the same thing. So remote working, that's here to stay. Now, I'm not saying necessarily people will be remote working all the time, every day, but there will be an aspect in most people's roles of doing that at least part of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not always going to be at home or in the office, are they? They're going to be anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah. Although fewer people are actually in the car a lot of the time at the moment as well.
Right now, yeah. So let's kind of get the crystal ball out for a moment. Let's look into the future. What does the industry look like going forward? Now, 2021, let's start there. What does the next year look like for the marketplace?
Right. Well, I think more of the above. Obviously, I don't want to keep harping on about the COVID thing, because we need to look beyond that as well. But certainly remote working, that's something. That genie is out of the bottle, and that's a good thing. Better for our lives. But I also think there's going to be a huge shake-up in the way that we all live. Not just in our business lives, but also in the way we live as families, enjoying downtime. And again, one of the appeals to the working from home part of the time and so forth is you haven't got to be on the train or in the car or whatever, getting to and from the office. You can use that as quality time, or actually you can do a bit more work really, and not necessarily stop when the clock says 5. Stop when you're finishing at the end of a particular component or something that you're working on. Now, even if the time comes when we no longer need to wear masks, when that comes, let's say, and we don't have to restrict the number of people that we invite to our barbecues and so forth, businesses are still going to insist, and as a consequence of this, and this is a good thing, they're going to insist on optimal short-term service configurability and tenure. So in order to be able to perform more dynamically and avoid being in the problems that they've had with this situation that we're finding ourselves in now, a business is going to insist on service provision aligning with their customers. So if my customers stop needing as much product or service from me for 6 months, a year or whatever, I don't want that to put my business down. So I need suppliers that are also able to dynamically provide me with products and services aligned with that. It's not my fault. If something happens, I'm going to do my best. If I'm delivering pens, widgets, whatever I'm doing, I can do a good job in trying to deliver them, but if something happens in this world, I don't want that to put me under, because as soon as things, I want to be able to tailor my costs a lot in alignment with my customer uptake. That literally now is going to be on every finance manager and every business manager's mind. They're saying, well, hang on a minute, where were the problems last time? Well, we had a lease that we had to continue paying for the next 5 years for a piece of equipment that we couldn't even use during this crisis.
What does that mean, Bart? Does that mean that, elasticity or agility is more important, or does that mean we just need to all digitally transform as soon as possible and get on some kind of consumption model for everything we do?
I think the world is going on. That is the way the world is going. If you want to use 10 times the amount of the guy next door, you should pay 10 times the amount. But if for a period you need to scale that down, the reason you're scaling it down is because you've not got the input coming in. You haven't got the customers coming in. And so if you can align your costs with your customer delivery, that's a win-win, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So a much more dynamic way of working. I see that. That's really interesting.
And that's a very high level. I'm not being specific about any particular product or anything, but just literally, businesses are going to want the ability to elastically receive goods and services from their suppliers in a way that's aligned with the way that they're being successful or not so successful with their customers. Rather than we don't want to be going bang or bust all the time. We need to be able to dynamically align the businesses based upon what the marketplace requires at that time.
I completely agree. We certainly need to be more robust in a crisis, don't we? And have that continuity, in mind at all times, I think. So
it's about taking the risk. If you think about it, right? If you deliver a product to someone, sign them up for 5 years, and you've committed to £1,000 a month for the next 5 years, who's taking the risk? So I've come along, Rob, and I've signed you up for a particularly cool media widget that's going to help your business that you need to deliver your products and services. And I said, Rob, that's only going to cost you £1,000 a month. And at the moment, £1,000 a month, you can justify that, right? But who has now provided the commitment? Who's taken on the risk? You or me?
Oh, yeah, me.
You have, absolutely. Now, but if I say to you, well, I'll tell you what, at the moment it's going to be £1,000 a month, but if you need £2,000 next month, you can have that, Rob. And if you only actually need to go down to £300 a month at some point, and actually, you know what, if you go down to 10 quid a month as a minimal or something, you can even do that.
We can't work like that now, can we? A lot of organizations, insist on, a minimum spend or a rolling contract. There's just so many more constraints around everything.
No, I think that's the throwback. I think that's the throwback from. That's what I say. If I sign you up for 5 years, and that's the issue, Why would you want to sign up for 5 years for anything today?
Exactly, you're stuck. Yeah, absolutely.
So, but if I come to you and say, you can have it for this month, that, and next month, you can choose how much, whether you actually take it, yes or no, each month, that's going to put you in a really great, you'd be happy to pay per item more, probably, because you know that over the term, whatever you do, you're going to be able to match your costs to your sales. You're not having to take that risk. So we're sharing the risk as a supplier and a customer. That's a good thing, isn't it?
In my opinion, that is a great thing, absolutely. And better for customer experience, longer term retention potentially, without having to enforce contract clauses and that kind of thing. So yeah, that's quite transformational, isn't it, for the industry? That's been happening for a while, but potentially what you're saying is that's really going to be we're going to leapfrog forward into that world going forward.
Indeed. And in fact, what's going to happen is if you have a competitor, for example, that has signed up to the 5 years and you've signed up to the dynamic provision of those services, over the next 6 months, Rob, you are going to be in a really good position, whilst your competitor might not even come out of it the other end.
Bart, thank you for sharing some really great insights with me today. It's been really interesting talking to you, and you know, it's lots happening in the marketplace, but some great advice for your partners and
maybe
customers.
a little bit somber on one or two parts, but that's the way I see it.
Thanks, Bart. Okay, Bart, now for a bit of fun, we're going to go through some quick fire questions. Are you ready?
I am ready.
First job.
Right, my first job, leaving school at 16, probably a bit stereotypical this, I was a trainee technician apprentice with British Telecom, BT.
Oh wow, didn't know that. Favourite day of the week?
Right, I'm going to cheat here. The first half of Monday and the second half of Friday. 2 halves make 1 day.
And would you rather be able to speak any language in the world or speak to animals?
Speak to animals, that would be so cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm on the level with you, that one, definitely.
Yeah.
What's the most inspirational book you've ever read and why?
Right, this is The Innovator's Dilemma by Christensen. And actually, it's a great business book. A bit sad, but it really was, about how businesses are able to or unable to innovate. It's a great book. Not a heavy read, I'd recommend it.
Good recommendation. What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity.
And that is very sound advice, isn't it? If you could teleport anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Well, I reckon a selfie in my swimming trunks on the top of Mount Everest would be a great picky to get lots of drinks in any pub for the rest of my life.
Brilliant, I'll buy you a beer. Voice call or video call?
Right, voice for buying things, video for friends and family and selling things.
Oh, well thought out. Dawn or dusk?
Dawn.
Do you believe in fate?
No. Thankfully, I have the power to manage and command my future, not anyone else.
What's worse, ironing or gardening?
Ironing.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, over this COVID period, I think the nation's got, a higher proportion of gardens that would win flower shows than it's ever had.
And I imagine there's much less ironing to do because people aren't going to work, right? So
absolutely. I've only started wearing trousers over the past couple of days. It's been shorts ever since.
Most watched movie ever?
Stardust.
Stardust? Oh, that's very surprising.
Yeah, it shocks my kids actually, but I love it.
Describe yourself in 3 words.
Tenacious, pondering and striving.
If you were given an all expenses paid trip to the north of England, would you take it?
Yes. Edinburgh Festival I've got on my bucket list one day.
That is a good festival. One day, when they return finally. Who is your greatest inspiration?
Pass. I struggle with this. Pass. Me.
We'll give you that one. Type, touch or speak?
Speak.
Elvis or the Beatles?
The Beatles.
Say g'day mate in an Australian accent.
G'day, fella.
If you could go back in time for a day, what date would you go back to and why?
I would go back to the day after my 18th birthday for a good long chat with myself.
You're not going to divulge what you're going to say to yourself, are you?
No, but I would, yeah. I'd say don't, do, don't, and do. Yeah. Whether or not I'd listen to this weird old geezer trying to give me advice that looks a little bit like my dad might be a different thing, but it'd be worth a try.
It's like a scene out of Back to the Future. Which new technology will transform the future?
EVs, electric vehicles.
Good answer. Greatest achievement ever?
Aside from my hole-in-one on the 11th at the Belfry, honestly, I think paying off my mortgage a few years back was a biggie for me, and that's one thing I would advise everyone to do. Pay off your mortgage, get the banks off your back so you're working for yourself.
Again, good sound advice. And that's it, that's a wrap. Thank you very much for talking to me today and joining me for UC Trends 2021. You've had a fantastic year and I wish you all the very best for the year ahead.